We will, at this time, open the hearing for the Kenyan County Fiscal Year 2022 budget hearing. It is 5:21 p.m. and it is now time for that budget hearing. Do the commissioners have any remarks to make before we hear from Clerk Yamamoto? Alright. Clerk Yamamoto and Controller Wagner, it's your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you all for being here. I have an inner ear thing going on, and I'm dizzy. So, Zach, if I fall off my chair, just prop me up back here and move on. My head kind of, and I'm sorry. In 1965, a film came out. It's called The Greatest Story Ever Told. Max von Sydow, Charlton Heston, John Wayne, a host of others. Many of those were new young actors and actresses that became household names later. The presentation tonight, I'm not going to put on par with that movie, but what I will tell you is this presentation will be the greatest budgetary story that any county has ever told, and that's saying something. So before I turn this over to the controller and Zach Wagner, who is sitting to my left here, I want to make sure, because I have a tendency to forget things, and I just want to thank Zach. He is one of the most competent people I've ever worked with. We make one of the best teams that I've ever seen. He makes my life and my work here at the county a joy. I'm very blessed to have him, and Kenyan County is very fortunate to have him. And if you'll indulge with me just one more time, I've had that situation one other time with a man named Dennis Cannon, and we worked together on the Indian Creek project. And that was one of the best collaborative efforts I've ever been involved in. He died last week. His service is going on right now as we speak in Walla Walla, and I just want to send my thoughts and prayers about Denny and his family, and thank you for indulging that. So let's get started, and I have been asked there was an op-ed in Sunday's paper, and we would like to go over those comments that were made and set the record. So, Zach, if you want to, I asked Zach if he would put this together. Zach, if you want to, I may chip in here.
Thank you, Clerk, and thank you for your kind words, your kind comments. I have no idea who Charlton Heston is.
Oh, man. I've been here too long.
Who is it?
Fiscal.
Is there a paper copy of that presentation anywhere?
Not of this one, no.
Okay,
This is not, there's not a paper copy of
it's
this.
just hard to see from here. Okay.
I'd like to state that, in my opinion, Kenyan County is extremely lucky to have a clerk named Chris Yamamoto. He wears a tremendous number of hats: elections, the courts, indigent, finance. And he is thoroughly engaged in all of those activities. And we're grateful for his leadership. As a county, we're lucky to have him in this position at this time. So thank you, Chris, for what you do for all of us, especially your thoughtful concern for the employees and your recognition of the importance of our staff, our frontline personnel, the other elected officials, the department administrators who do such a good job in guiding this county, especially over the course of the past 15 months through extremely difficult circumstances.
You're not getting a bonus.
Maybe I'll ask Charlton Heston. Chris mentioned the article that appeared in Sunday's paper. There was a comment that there has been a 6.5% year-over-year increase in salaries for new and existing employees since 2016. In 2016, the county implemented a compensation plan. Since the implementation of that compensation plan, the annual average salary increase for employees is 3.5% per year. This slide breaks that out by specific fiscal year. In fiscal year 2017, there was a less than 1% increase for county employees. These numbers include both a COLA and a step increase. In fiscal year 2018, the average increase was 4.9%. Fiscal year 2019, 4.6%. In 2020, 4.9%. And in fiscal year 2021, the average increase was 2.1%. There was no cost of living adjustment included in the fiscal year 2021 budget. So if you average out over those 5 years, it's an average of 3.5% for salary increases. It was stated that this equates to an increase in property taxes of $19 million. In reality, the total of those increases was $7 million, and county revenues outside of property tax over that same time increased $14 million, or more than covering the $7 million in salary increases. It was stated that since 2015, property taxes have increased more than $19 million. That is an accurate statement. I do believe that it's important to note that in fiscal year 2015, we relied heavily on fund balance to fund that budget. We provided significant property tax relief fiscal year 2009 through 2015. In 2009, levied $38 million in property tax. Through prudent fiscal management, we were somehow able to decrease our property tax request by $4 million. And fiscal year 2015 was the low point, and that was the point where we used fund balance to fund the budget. And since then, we've had to shift. You can't rely on fund balance forever. Once you spend $1, it's gone. So if you look at the 14 years since 2009, the average annual property tax increase is 3%. State law allows an increase of 3% plus new construction. So we are significantly below what state law would afford us to levy for property tax. It was stated that salaries, if this budget is approved, will have increased more than $24 million. From fiscal year 2015, including the tentative fiscal year 2022 budget, the salary increase would be $15.5 million. The lack of a capital improvements plan with a corresponding funding source for projects, including a new public safety building, was included in that article. The questions are, what is the new public safety building? And what is the funding source for the new public safety building? It was stated that the county's fund balance has more than doubled at $79.9 million since fiscal year 2015. County fund balance has increased 65% since fiscal year 2015. In fiscal year 2015, fund balance was $48 million. Again, it's projected or estimated at the end of the current fiscal year to be at $79.9 million, an increase of $31 million or 65%. If the fund balance were to have doubled, it would be over $96 million. It's also important, extremely important to note that out of that $79.9 million, $25 million of that is reserved and restricted for specific purposes, including the county landfill. So not all of that $80 million is freely available to use at our discretion. It was stated that there was a lack of transparency in the use of federal funds under ARPA. American Rescue Plan Act revenue replacement funds are clearly identified and included in the fiscal year 2022 budget.
Thank you, Zach. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Van Dien?
I would just comment that in 2015, the property taxes levied were $34,656,753 according to the capital report. And in 2020, it was $53,867,654. I can't do that math in my head, but it is $19,210,901. So I understand, I'm hearing you say that there was some use of fund balance in there. Yeah. Then the public safety, then that question has been asked, where is it? The revenue funding, finding the revenue source for that is under the statutory authority of the clerk. I have made several proposals on that, so that falls outside of my jurisdiction, but to see those proposals taken and discussed thoroughly, I don't think that we've done that yet. The average increase year over year was taken from 0% increases and some instances of 30% increases. So it was an average of those in that. So I appreciate your clarification. Those are the high points. I'm not here to, we would have to go point by point to do that, but it matters which year you look at for those fundings. And if in the numbers for the $19,210,901, if we add $6.2 million, that will equate to $24 million property taxes levied. I can find that number, but it has been an increase since 2015 of $19 million.
I don't have any additional comments on the op-ed piece.
Okay.
You want the budget?
Move on with the fiscal year 2022 tentative operating budget. The fiscal year 2022 tentative budget includes 1,782 individual line items. Every line item, every office, and every department are important components of the annual budget. 50% of county revenues come from one source, property tax, and 65% of county spending is from one area, personnel. Property tax and personnel are significant components of county finances. County leadership are tasked with making crucial decisions regarding property tax and personnel. For the second straight year, Kenyan County is decreasing our property tax request. Kenyan County's fiscal year 2022 property tax request is $286,000 less than last year's request and $434,819 less than the 2020 property tax request. For the second year in a row, Kenyan County is taking zero new construction increase. For the second year in a row, Kenyan County is taking 3% increase. And once again, for the second straight year, Kenyan County is requesting 0 from foregone. Property taxes. Property taxes are a combination of property values and levy rates. It is possible for levy rates to decrease and property taxes to increase. Substantial value increases will offset levy rate decreases. If you'd like to discuss this further, the County Assessor Brian Stender is in the front.
Red tie.
I've worked in county government for 19 years. 19 years I've worked heavily with property tax. And when I saw these numbers, I was taken back. I was surprised. I understand how this works, but when I actually saw it on paper, I was surprised. And here's what surprised me. The levy rate, and you may often hear politicians talk about levy rates. The levy rate decreased 40%. That's significant, that's tremendous. However, for an owner-occupied residence, taxes paid increased 15%. While the rate went down 40%, the actual taxes paid on an owner-occupied property increased 15%. That is happening because residential property values are skyrocketing. The average owner-occupied residence value has increased 76% over those 5 years, resulting in a tax shift from commercial properties to residential owner-occupied properties. Now this slide shows a similar situation with a commercial property. Again, property taxes are a combination of property values and levy rates. Property value has a substantial influence on property tax. Comparatively small value changes can result in decreased property taxes. So on this commercial property, again, you've got the 40% decrease in the levy rate. But in the case of this property, the property taxes went down 38%. Paying property tax to the same county, paying under the same levy rate, but in this case, the property tax decrease was 38%. And that's tied back to the value. Over the course of 5 years, the change in value on this property was only 4%. And because of that, their property taxes decreased 38%. This chart shows both of those situations together. Property taxes on owner-occupied properties have increased since 2017. In 2016, there was legislative action that capped the homeowner's exemption amount at a maximum of $100,000. Also in 2016, there was legislative action that removed the housing price index factor from calculating the maximum homeowner's exemption amount. Rapidly increasing home prices have resulted in property tax increases for homeowners and decreases for other classifications of property. There was a fair amount of conversation earlier this year in the legislature about property taxes. I am very pleased to report that the Kenyan County Clerk, the County Treasurer, the County Assessor put a great deal of time, work, and effort into providing property tax relief for homeowners. Working together with Representative Scott, working with local concerned citizens, we crafted a masterpiece of legislation that would have provided real property tax relief to everyone, including homeowners. That proposal was co-sponsored by 48 representatives and senators, and unfortunately, it did not even receive a hearing in committee. But your clerk, your treasurer, your assessor, those thoroughly involved in property tax are working diligently to help bring equity and fairness to the property tax system. What we did receive was House Bill 389. House Bill 389 did increase the maximum homeowners exemption amount to $125,000. It did limit property tax increases with an exception for a fire protection district annexing property. Now, individual taxing districts, such as cities, schools, fire districts, determine their own individual specific property tax request. Property tax bills include levies from multiple taxing districts. Below are 2020 actual and 2021 estimated property tax amounts for the average valued owner-occupied residence. For the average owner-occupied residence in the city of Caldwell, it's anticipated that property taxes will increase 2%. For owner-occupied property within the city of Nampa, it's estimated that the property tax increase will be 12%. And for property located outside of either of those two cities, it's estimated that property taxes will decrease 3%. And those numbers include all of the taxing districts that we pay taxes to: cities, schools, the county, highway districts. Personnel. Personnel investment is a significant component of the county budget. Great consideration is given to ensure county employees receive an equitable wage at minimum taxpayer expense. Increasing revenues from sources other than property tax contribute to personnel investment. And again, here are the historical salary increases for existing full-time personnel since the 2016 implementation of the compensation plan. An average annual salary increase of 3.5%. And that 3.5% includes both a COLA and a step increase when received. Qualified county personnel work earnestly to effectively provide essential government services. The 2022 tentative budget includes a grand total of over $75 million for salaries and benefits. Within that $75 million is a $5 million investment in our current personnel and positions. Also included is $2.8 million for 35 new full-time positions. And out of those 35 new full-time positions, 20 are in response to the addition of 3 new judges Kenyan County will receive in early October. The total expenditure budget is just a little over $117 million. $6.6 million of that is for culture and recreation. $9.9 million of that is for public works. That includes our landfill, our solid waste operations. Public safety accounts for $44.7 million. Health, welfare, and indigency is over $10 million of the budget. And general government services, just a little under $46 million. So a total 2022 tentative expenditure budget, $117,341,644. Other operating and capital investments included in the 2022 tentative budget. Responsible budgeting includes investing in property, plant, and equipment to address current and future needs. Properly maintaining public assets and sensibly acquiring new assets are essential components of successful financial planning. Canyon County personnel provide valuable and cost-efficient services in maintaining and improving our physical facilities. The budget includes a total investment of almost $42 million for operations and capital improvements, including the following highlights. A total of $10 million for the Fair Exposition Center and Site Improvements Project. Over $1 million for general vehicles, police vehicles, and trucks. $560,000 for a loader and service truck at the landfill. $1.4 million for the annual lease payment for modular inmate housing. Over $800,000 for physical facilities investments. $175,000 for a fleet car wash, and $170,000 for a jail body scanner. Where does the funding come from? Canyon County has successfully expanded revenue sources outside of property tax. Grants, charges for service, and revenues other than property tax are maximized to limit reliance on property tax. Broad and diverse sources of revenue are utilized to protect taxpayers and promote the county's financial security. Out of the total $117 million, 46%, the largest share comes from property tax, and 26% comes from our intergovernmental revenues. Those would include grants, sales tax, monies from the state. And additionally, to balance the budget, we've included $8.3 million of fund balance. Included in the 2022 tentative budget are American Rescue Plan Act monies. The American Rescue Plan provides that coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds may be used for the provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue due to COVID-19. General revenue includes taxes, charges for services, intergovernmental transfers from the state, and other general miscellaneous revenue. General revenue does not include transfers from the federal government, such as previously received coronavirus relief funds. Prior to COVID-19, Kenyan County's general revenue growth rate was 10.5% per year. Kenyan County's estimated 2020 general revenue without COVID-19 is $106 million. COVID-19 interrupted our 2020 revenues. The actual 2020 general revenues were just a little over $100 million. The revenue reduction as a result of COVID-19 is $6.1 million. $6.1 million is available from American Rescue Plan Act monies for the provision of government services. So the tentative budget includes the following government services paid for with ARPA funds. $70,000 for the outside financial audit, $85,000 for architect fees, $255,000 for the roof replacement on Plot 5, $850,000 for our annual liability insurance premium, $501,000 for public safety vehicles, $1.4 million for our annual lease payment for inmate modular housing, $895,000 for inmate food service, $1.8 million for inmate medical service, and $170,000 for the jail body scanner. Again, a total of over $6.1 million of American Rescue Plan Act funds included in the 2022 budget. Almost there. Decreased property tax request exemplifies a commitment to property taxpayers. Zero 3% increase requested. Zero new construction taken. Zero foregone balance included. Personnel investment demonstrates a commitment to employees and taxpayers by ensuring professional service delivery. Decreased property taxes combined with significant personnel, operating and capital investments are a demonstration of the county's financial strength. Citizens, elected officials, department administrators, and county employees working together have achieved financial and operational excellence.
Thank you, Zach. Final comments from this side of the table. ARPA, American Rescue. If I could wave a magic wand, I would make it go away. I think it is the beginning of the destruction of this country. It's not good. I think it's a bill we won't be able to pay. That being said, if Kenyan County doesn't take their share, it will go to other places. And my determination was, and the suggestion I'm giving to this board, that we utilize that here in Kenyan County, because I'd rather see that happen than San Francisco or somewhere else get it. So that's my explanation. Again, I wish it wouldn't happen. This craziness needs to stop. It really does. So where am I coming from on a more positive note? Why did I tell you this is the greatest story that we have to tell? We're no 3%, no foregone, no new construction. No one else in this state can say that. No one has that story. Caldwell, as an example, there's an 8% cap with House Bill 389. And what they published, they're taking 7%. No one else can say what we're doing. With the unprecedented growth that we have, and that's getting expensive and it's getting hard to cover. That's why you're seeing 35 new positions in this county because of the growth. We are doing that, not only adding that, but raising salaries to a point that we can hopefully attract more and better employees and retain those employees. We're doing all of that while lowering the budget from the last 2 years. That's actually a fantastic story. All the while having a $79 million fund balance. To me, that should be a celebration. With all that in mind, tell us what we're doing wrong. Madam Chair, thank you.
Clerk Yamamoto. I'm not going to say that you've done anything wrong. I want to express how grateful I am. This was my first year as part of this budget process. Before that budget started, the board and myself had visited with the clerk to consider changes to the budget process and to allow the board to sit in on some of those initial discussions with many of our directors and EOs that are here. And that was really valuable. We all heard the same things on what the needs and the priorities are in this county. And when you came with your suggested budget, I know you already said this, but I'm just going to say it again because I agree with it. The clerk proudly stated that we had two priorities when they created the budget. And it was to take care of the taxpayer with property tax relief and to take care of our employees. And you did that in this budget. And so I want to thank you for your hard work on that. I want to thank you for allowing us to be a part of that process. And I think that I'm not going to speak for the other commissioners, but I think that we all enjoyed the process. And again, thank you. And I don't have any problems with the budget. I just want to ask a couple of questions. One of them is, I just to clear maybe some muddy water, hoping for an answer, like whether this is a factor in opinion, is maybe what you can answer for me. Get to it. On using the ARPA funds, and maybe prosecuting attorney Taylor might have to answer this, but can it be, the way that it's worded, can it be used for ongoing costs? Or should those costs not be included?
I'm not sure how to answer that. I'll let Beck check in here, but, so for the audience, we have just under $23 million, which is half of the ARPA money that's in the bank and has been for a month and a half, something like that. What we've done with the $6.1 million is fit all of the boxes that we know, given the guidelines that we have from the Treasury, that we know will fit. In other words, we know that those fall within the guidelines. So I think the answer, well, I'll let you take it from there.
The ARPA money is revenue replacement from revenue that's already been lost. Our revenue was increasing at 10.5% per year. That got thrown off track by COVID to the tune of $6.1 million. So the $6.1 million is replacing revenue that's already been lost because of the COVID interruption.
Thank you. Sam, any chance you would weigh in on, I understand where they're coming from. I've reviewed that section myself. To me, it's unclear that you can't use ongoing. It doesn't say that.
Madam Chair.
So I want to just confirm that you think that we're in a good position.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, Madam Chair. So I know the clerk, the controller, and the treasurer have looked at this a lot. There have been some continuing education programs, I think, that we participated in. As of the last version of the FAQs that were put out by the Department of Treasury and the Office of Inspector General, it really split the ARPA funds in two, the ones that are revenue replacement and the ones that have to do with the COVID response, right? And so as of that last meeting we had and those last FAQs, which I think were in late July, I was very comfortable with the approach that the clerk and the treasurer had laid out, yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Benby?
Thank you. I do appreciate, I will echo your sentiments that people have a vested interest in protecting both taxpayers and employees. Thank you for the work that you've done in this. I am a person that likes to, I guess, the Missouri Show Me philosophy, but I've been engaged in conversations with Representative Rick Youngblood. I had a conversation with him on the way to this meeting tonight. He met with city officials in Nampa this evening, along with Senator Agenbrod, and advised those city officials not to use the American Rescue Plan funds for ongoing expenses. So on page 6 of the county's budget, of that $6.169045 million, there's two one-time costs, and that's the $255,000 for the geopod 5 roof replacement, and then the $85,000 in architectural fees for the storage facility. But the balance of that is for the ongoing expenses in there. And I also had a conversation with the Nampa City Council President, Randy Haverfield. The clerk referenced the fire district. This is new for the city of Nampa, where they have created their own district. It was a $10 million proposal in their budget, and I asked how they were going to handle that $10 million. And he said, well, taxpayers are used to paying that $10 million, but because there's something else being created, we removed that from the budget. So in saying that, the nexus that I'm making is that these costs were already identified in the budget because they're ongoing costs. We didn't reduce the budget by that amount. We could have done that and lowered the levy rate further, but I guess my proposal at this point, we have several years to figure out how to use the ARPA funds, especially with the clerk's comments that he believes there's some risk inherently, even with national longevity on the use of these funds. So in looking at, and I know that the clerk and the controller, the assessor, treasurer are heavily involved in evaluating the use of ARPA funds, but commissioners should also be involved in looking at how to utilize that. That's the best argument on why the county took those was we didn't want it to go to another county. I don't agree with it. I didn't vote for it. But I cannot, in good faith, unless we were to take these out and reduce the amount of the budget by that corresponding amount, and that's what I'm saying, it's in there once as a property tax, once as another source of revenue. We sat with Seth Grigg for Idaho Association of Counties yesterday, and we were talking about property tax relief and how to do that at the legislative session coming up. And we mentioned this, the use like this, and I said that does not represent long-term property tax relief. And he agreed, because at some point in time when these funds are used and that revenue has to be replaced, it has to be provided either by non-property tax revenue, which I would argue if we don't identify that now, that would be a non-appropriations where we're binding a future board without an identified revenue source. And I don't have a crystal ball, so that would be the first problem for me. But to put that on the taxpayers long-term, that would not be something I would be in favor of. So that non-appropriations thing, I would argue that that's a point to be evaluated. In addition to the fact that Representative Youngblood was repetitive many times, do not use these funds for ongoing costs. Use them for one-time expenses. We have $340,000 in one-time expenses out of $6,169,045. And I have objected also to the $1,454,085 on the annual Pod 6 inmate housing lease. With the current structure of this, that will be consumed by salaries. We told taxpayers we would levy that to support a public safety facility, which I still believe is the right use for that. I also believe that we have to compensate employees, but not, that's the transparency portion of that I disagree with on there, is that would be an identified source of providing funds for a public safety facility, which everyone agrees is needed in Kenyan County. And there's discussion on what that would look like at the state level on building public safety, given the difficult climate of passing bonds for that, and that's a different discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Beek. I have one point of clarification. When I reviewed the budget, I did not see that the controller put these charges in against property tax and against ARPA. They're a one-time expense out of ARPA, and it is not double-lined from what I reviewed.
And philosophically, I would disagree with that. So
I looked in power plan, which is where he puts all the charges, and it's not in there twice. It's in there once.
once in property tax, once in
It's not in there under property tax.
I'll look again.
Okay.
And then, Madam Chair, I would like to have a discussion. I pulled information off of the website.
Sam, did you want to give any?
Madam Chair, if I could just,
Before we move on?
yes, sorry. I wanted to look at those FAQs real quick and make sure I was giving the board the most updated information. And so I'm looking at the FAQs that were promulgated by the Department of Treasury as of June 17, 2021. Once a recipient has identified a reduction in revenue, are there any restrictions on how recipients use funds up to the amount of the reduction? And this interim final rule gives broad latitude to use funds for the provision of government services. We can't pay interest, we can't pay down outstanding debt, replenish rainy day funds, but otherwise have this broad latitude.
For the record, what are you reading from?
That is the FAQ number 3.8 from the June 17th, 2021 Department of Treasury FAQs.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
So if I could respond, and Zach, you listen to what I'm saying, and then, tell me if I'm wrong. So we could take the 6.1 million and remove that, put it back in the bank, and then that would be replaced by property tax. So property tax would go up $6 million. And then we'd have our full, almost $23 million still on the bank to spend somewhere else on whatever. We have the opportunity to spend this one time for replacement monies. This is the only opportunity we have to do that, and that is relief for the property taxpayer. Doing anything otherwise makes no sense whatsoever.
So for one time.
That was the greatest story ever told. Yes, this is replacing revenue that's already been lost. It was lost in 2020. We're just replacing lost revenue for the provision of government services going forward.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Bemby?
I would also say, this is where I was starting to go, and Sam, thank you for your clarification, that I pulled the information off the website tonight. The cost of living adjustment, and Zach verified that, was included with the salary increases going forward. Last year, for 2020, it was 1.3%. This year, the information coming from the Social Security increase, Social Security Administration, for the cost of living increases, says it could be the highest in nearly 40 years in 2022, and we are predicting an increase of 6.2%. So the way that this would work, it would mean that you would eliminate salary increases. You would not give those right at this time. You would wait until the end of the year, which December is when the Social Security Administration publishes their numbers for the actual cost of living adjustments. We're not finished with this year yet, and we still have a full quarter and a little bit to go on that. But they've identified under the Biden administration that gasoline is up over 42% in the last 12 months. And we don't know what costs, especially given the international climate and the things that are happening overseas, what that's going to look like. So the proposal would be that we would onboard a human resources director. They would do the salary information that we've been discussing, and then we would open the budget and give an accurate cost of what the cost of living is for that, and any adjustments that need to be made. There are adjustments in the budget. I was lobbying to include directors in some type of adjustment for some of those directors that was not included. And I have yet to understand, because I was, I guess, criticized at the last hearing for tying the information back to Ada County. Now I have no idea what those salaries are tied to, because I was told that was not accurate. So for the board to fully understand what this current salary, and to give a new HR director the ability to look at, and we're actively seeking a qualified professional with skill and expertise in evaluating wages and compensation. I think that's the best in making that adjustment proactive to when the budget would actually take effect. That to me is a plan that we could use, and it would give us time. We don't have to use the ARPA funds right away, and so that would give us time to evaluate and see what that looks like. So that's the other half of that conversation.
Thank you. Can point of clarification from Controller Wagner as well as Sam. First question is, in front of us today is the budget. We are not approving a compensation plan today, nor any specific salaries, correct?
Correct. What you're approving today, what you're considering approving today is the fiscal year 2022 budget. This is not fixing individual salaries. The practice in prior years has been that closer to October 1st, the start of the new fiscal year, individual salaries are fixed at that time by resolution.
And then second point of clarification, Sam. So the budget theoretically gets approved today. And then the board establishes or updates the compensation plan. Are you okay?
Yes,
Okay. Coming to the table. Updates, let's just say that we update the compensation plan and we make changes to that, to the STEP program. On past meetings, and I was quoted in the paper as saying I wanted to blow up the plan. The context behind that was that I think that there are issues with the compensation plan. I shared my own personal story with the county to one of the reporters on why I left the county a few years ago, and it was because of the opportunity, the lack of the opportunity to grow and have compensation that was equitable for not my time here, but for the education that I had garnered and the amount of work that I was able to produce. And so I looking at where we're at, personally think that our compensation plan needed fixed or updated, not so much as blown up, just to be clear. However, let's say that we make those changes. As commissioners, that was a long story to get to my question, I'm sorry, but what do we have in our toolbox to make adjustments once the budget's been passed?
Right. So the main limitation on changing the budget after it's been passed is making sure that there's notice and opportunity to be heard if you're going to reopen. If you're committed to working within the amount of the budget that has been passed, I think the main limitation is staying within that sum, I would think. Kenyan County is an at-will employer. Our employees all know that salaries, we try to fix them for the year, but there are changes throughout. The statutes have a little bit of ambiguity about how exactly the board is supposed to set those statutes or set those salaries. But once you have approved a budget, you can work within it to make changes. I think that's pretty clear.
Okay.
Did that answer any question? It's not a yes/no question, right? There
Right.
would have to be.
And it's not an easy topic either, because theoretically, some budgets could go up or down based on what type of equity the commissioners, because we are charged with establishing salaries and the wages of our employees. And so through that compensation plan that would establish equity, there could be changes.
And we would run into a potential problem. The statutes, there's two different statutes that are kind of on point with respect to this in the budget part. 1306, exact, maybe 1305, 3113, right?
Right.
Or is it 1605?
1605.
1605. So one of them requires the board to publish the tentative budget, and it says that after that tentative budget is established at this final budget hearing, it can't go up. In that tentative budget, the statute requires us to publish the proposed budgets by department and by office. And so there's some ambiguity as to whether that prohibition on increasing the budget applies to the big $117 million number, or if it applies to the office by department numbers. And so if you were to take appropriated monies away from a given office to redistribute them to another office or department, there could be issues with the funds involved because of restrictions, and there could be issues related to the due process notice that was given. So it's kind of a slippery concept. The board can do most things with notice, opportunity to be heard, and a record that shows a reasonable purpose.
And in regard to moving within funds, that's historically something we have not done.
Yes.
Moving it between departments and offices. What's it take to move, and again, I'm the new guy, I'm gonna keep using this. What, does it require board action to move money from, if an office has money allocated, can they move from A to B, monies? And vice versa?
That happens after board approval, board resolution. And generally, how that's happened in the past is towards the end of the fiscal year, once we're getting close to having all the bills paid, we put together a resolution for you to consider approving those transfers.
Thank you. I don't have any additional questions on that. I had a couple of topics that I'd like to bring up. If we,
Madam Chair, could I address, going backwards a little bit, COLAs?
sure.
You know, COLA is obviously a factor. Ask a young couple that's trying to buy a house in Fulton County, you know, they can't right now. But it is just a factor. I'm not paying a lot of attention to that, just partially. And the reason is, what we're seeing here in the county is some competition to our workforce. So over in the courts, as an example, we're hiring all the time. Right now we have 8 new hires, which means we have 8 trainers, which means we're starting to get behind. I had no intention of the suggested budget with the COLA that we ended up with. Right up until we lost 3 dispatchers out of the sheriff's office to the city of Nampa. All in one swoop. 3 dispatchers. We're, I believe, 12 down in the jail. We're down to 5 patrol deputies on the road now. And I told the controller, we have to do something. We have to get competitive. With the package that we have proposed in this budget does not, we're still not at par. We're not competitive. All we're doing is getting a little closer.
Thank you. Okay. Any other final comments before we take public testimony?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
I have some for later. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. We'll begin with public testimony. Kathy Alder, you were signed up first. Name and address for the record, and Monica is going to serve your time.
Kathy Alder, 6522 Baseline Road, Napa, Idaho. And it's been really interesting to listen to all this. First and foremost, I appreciate the fact that you're not increasing taxes, but I really would like to see a tax reduction. And I think with if you do go forward and take the money from the federal government, that does give you an opportunity to reduce property taxes even more than a couple of $100,000. At first, I thought take that $5 million that we're going to put into salary increases, and I think maybe salary increases for the people on the end. I think that's great and very important. And I guess my shout out would be, if you want to increase your salaries, run for office, right? Because I know Ron Harriman pulled up just 2 elected officials, and where the salaries were when I left office in 2015. Chris, you were making, Mr. Yamamoto, you were making $78,000, and you're and in 2020 it's $100,000, and that's an increase of about 27%. And so if everybody else is only making 3.5%, then perhaps they need to run for office so that you can get your salary up there to where. And I know commissioners are making a whole lot more now than what we were making back in the old days, which is fine, but at the same point in time, there's $40,000 sitting in there to increase your salaries, which also increase benefits. And so I think the county does a good job as far as not only the basic salary, but the benefit package that the county has. It's always been wonderful. I personally wrote down the items that you were going to use the $6.1 million of the ed money, and I thought they looked pretty good. But I don't know about how good it is to put it in the budget if there's problems with it. And I don't necessarily trust the federal government. However, one other thing that I do want to say that all of us did enjoy from the federal government was stimulus money. And so it's not like anybody went without. If you pay income taxes, you get to have some tax-free money from the federal government. And at some point in time, the gravy train has got to end. And so I am just saying, we still have COVID, we still have issues. I like to pretend it doesn't exist, but it does. And it does make a difference on businesses out there. And so I think we just need to be very cautious and very careful moving forward. And I think if you can look at this budget and actually reduce the property tax, maybe $3-4 million, that would be wonderful to all of us who have the opportunity to pay taxes. But I do appreciate the fact that you're not increasing taxes. I think that's good and the right way to go, particularly because we don't know what's ahead. And I think we have to move very cautiously, just because of who's in office. And so thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And I hope that you take this budget under consideration before you say yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for you. Is that okay?
Oh, yes. I have a question.
So my taxes on my own personal home, it's right around 50% is going to schools. And so Kenyan County specifically continues to work really hard at reducing our levy rates. Are you participating in the school budget hearings, encouraging them to reduce their budgets?
You know what? I'm very fortunate. I live in Melba. And actually, the county is more than the school. So their school, they have had ultra-conservative people and not a lot of, there's one bond for the elementary school that's out there right now. They don't come back year after year demanding levies. They have been probably the most efficient board. And so I'm very fortunate. That's a great school district to live in.
That's good news for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Claudia, Frank, welcome.
I'm Claudia Front, and I live at 12359 Rivendell Court in Nampa. And I would say thank you for not increasing the percentage in property taxes, but I disagree that property taxes are not going up. They are going up. My property taxes through my property value is going to go up about $2,000 this year, about $1,800. There was a $200,000 assessment increase on my home, and last week I received another letter, and the property assessor's office came back out, and they're reassessing our home again for next year. We're self-employed, so our income went down 30% last year. So 30% cut in income, about $1,800 hike in property taxes through property values. Gas has gone up, food has gone up. We have 4 kids that we support, 2 in college, 2 at home, 2 that we support all 4. So at some point, something has to happen because we cannot continue to do this. I built my own home with my own 2 hands. I do a lot of the work in the house. My husband did the other part of the work in the house. I was the builder. I built more than one home. And I did not build my house for what I'm being taxed on it. I built between $74 a square foot to $100 a square foot. That's why I can live in the neighborhood I live in 2016. And every year I pay more and more in taxes. And if something doesn't change next year, guess who has to sell? Not because I want to sell, not because I want to live somewhere else, because I'm not going to be able to afford the taxes in my neighborhood anymore. Because I made a good investment and I chose a nice piece of property on 2 acres. So what is the solution? And you're correct. You're correct in saying that we're headed into a very bad place in this country. So I appreciate that you recognize that. The one thing that I don't appreciate is that everybody seems to say we're going down the wrong path, we're going down the wrong path. But those who are elected, those who are in office, in our legislators, in our Senate, our governors, our just different places, we're all saying it, but no one is doing anything about it. No one is taking a stance. Everybody's saying if we don't take the money, someone else will take the money. If we don't do this, someone else. When will we get to the point where we're saying, okay, we have to look out for the people that are actually funding the government, the little guy, the people who are actually paying a part of their taxes, income tax, property taxes? When is somebody going to look out for the little guy? Because what we're doing now is we're creating 2 classes. And I came from a 2-class system. We're creating the rich and the poor. And I will not be middle class in a couple of years. It probably won't even take a couple of years if things continue down this path. And neither will a lot of you that are sitting in this room. So I would like to see a real solution to the property tax increase issue. That's.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Rebut?
Sure.
So, we did not tell you your taxes were going down. I don't know, you didn't find that slide I wanted you to get, but where it talks about is because of what your levy rate does. Yeah, we know the taxes are going up. On a residential, they're going down on commercial. That's the problem. Where we had a 60-40 split, now it's a 70-30 split. Okay, and that's what we tried to do, get through to the legislators, is we need to do something about that differential between the two. Because absolutely, we could lower the budget quite a bit more if we could make that work, and your taxes are still gonna be going.
Correct.
So there's a problem. We worked with the legislators last year, we worked with them the year before. There's some other interests involved, so I agree with everything you're saying. But until we get the differential fixed between the two, there's gonna be a problem.
And I understood that from your presentation. I understood that you were saying that our property tax percentage is not going up, but because our property values are going up, we're paying more taxes. The legislature itself, I've sat in on a lot of hearings, I've testified at a lot of hearings. Part of our legislature is good, and part of it is not. And I would say our senators are the biggest problem in Idaho right now. They are not backing any of the good bills that are going through the legislature. I've sat in on a ton of hearings.
Thank you.
Thank you. That completes those that have signed up in testimony. Is there anyone else that would like to provide testimony? All right. So that will complete public comment for this evening. Madam Chair.
Motion to close.
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner White and a second by Commissioner Van Beek to close public testimony. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. At this time, we we'll have an opportunity for each of us to deliberate and ask questions if we have any additional questions.
Okay. Well, I'll go first.
Okay, Commissioner White.
I wrote mine down. And it's very short, it's only 8 or 9 or 12 pages, so. That we only get to do this once a year, right? So, anyway, but I double and triple spaced it, so I hope it's interesting. First of all, I'd like to thank those of you that gave up your dinner hour and used that time to be with us here tonight. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your involvement in this process. This is a long process, and it is a wearying process, and the discussions go back and forth, and as you can see, even there's still a little bit of back and forth going on, and still some stuff, but it's fascinating, and I love my job. Thank you again for being here. And next I want to thank the Commissioner's Office staff. We only have with us Monica Reeves tonight, as she's doing the deputy clerk duties for this. And but those gals, Jen and Ross and Terry Salisbury, I could not do, as Commissioner for District 3, I could not do my job if it wasn't for our staff, and especially in these times. They have, it's a busy office, and there's 6 women. And yes, and the ladies, they are taking remarkable care of us, and they're humble and funny, and they have minds like steel traps. So I just want you all to know that how much I appreciate them. Let me see. And there are other elected officials here tonight, and most of you, I want to point them out. Clerk Chris Yamamoto, whom you have heard from. The assessor, who I have heard referred to on numerous occasions tonight, is Brian Stender, and he's sitting right here in the front row. Thanks, Brian, I'm glad you're here. Treasurer Tracy Lloyd is here with us too. She's right here in the front row. Thank you for your service. You have a hard job, and especially twice a year. There are difficult things that you have to do when you come face to face with people. So thank you very, very much. And you too, Brian. I'm glad you're still alive. Thank you. We also have, I'm looking around here, we have the coroner, who is Jennifer Crawford, and I have not seen her tonight walk in, but this was her first term, and boy, oh boy, she's a crackerjack. So we appreciate her very, very much. Sheriff Karen Donahue, he is not here. I'm sure we would all know if he were in the room. But the black hat has Man Up Purple Night at the rodeo. It's the Combo Rodeo. Thus we have on boots and jeans, okay? So anyway, and yeah, okay. Let me see. Oh, and Brian Taylor. There's 2 of the Brians. One's a Y, one's an I. And he's the Kenyan County prosecuting attorney. And without you and the staff, Sam Lockheed, and I see Zach Wesley, congratulations, Zach. I'm glad you're here. Let me look around. We could not, I'm not going to talk for them. I need you, I need your office, and I appreciate your advice so much. Thank you very, very much. It is a protective covering for me as somebody that says sometimes things that shouldn't be said. Okay, thank you. So we've got that now. Okay, I received a lot of emails. Some of them thanking me, 1 or 2 threatening me, some scolding me, but I've read them all, and I appreciate all of them. And because they are the citizens, from the citizens of this county who are the constituents, and you know what? They're my boss. They hired me to do this job, and it's a hard job, and it's not always fun, it's really tough decisions, and a lot of times, you know, you just put your head down and I just run from my office because I don't think they weren't happy with me, but I love my job. And thank you, those of you here and the citizenry and all of that, former Commissioner Alder. I'm so glad that you were here. I would be disappointed if you were not here. So it's very, very good to have you here. And I love you. And thank you for those of you that have sent emails. I probably like the ones that thank me the best, but threatening and scolding, those keep me in line, okay? So I read all of them. It's a privilege to serve the people of Kenyan County. The service I get to do is so rewarding, so inspiring, so unforgettable, so enlightening, so complex, so exciting. Every day is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to serve. Thank you so much. I've learned to carefully think before I speak. When I blurt or spew, I'm ashamed of myself. The office of County Commissioner deserves, and I mean this with all my heart, the office of County Commissioner deserves my utmost respect in word, behavior, and deed. I will not please everyone all of the time, or some I won't even please some of the time, but I do my very best every time to make a decision that is best for this county and one that I am not ashamed or sorry. And if I'm wrong, it is not hard for me to say I was wrong. And I appreciate those of you that come to hearings and get involved. Claudia, thank you very, very much for that. I've learned it's not always about what you say that changes things. A lot of time, the fact of what you don't say, that's where the potential is for the greatest impact in progress and change. And Commissioner Van Beek is extremely well-spoken and writing and all that, and she does so much of that composition of different things, and I just really appreciate all of that. And what you had to say in the paper, I thought that was bold, and I thought that as a commissioner for District 1, that was good, okay for you to speak for the people of District 1. But what you did not say is what I heard tonight, and I will refer to Zach Wagner, the controller. No, or you're not the what's his face? That one. Yeah, he's the. I call him a curmudgeon, but he thinks it's Charlton Heston. I don't know where that came from. So anyway, and that is this budget. Does not take the 3%, does not take the new construction, doesn't take any foregone for the second, this is 2 years in a row. But that brings me to the employees, and that is the greatest asset that you as citizens, me as a citizen of Kenyan County, let alone I get to work with these people, but these employees, they are the greatest asset that Kenyan County has. We have so many tasks and so many jobs and so many duties that are statutorily mandated. They are services that people have come to expect, and at a level, Kenyan County for years has provided services at a level. But a lot of the times, those enabled to provide those services, they came at the expense of the employees. And the first year I came in here, we budgeted that the commissioners before me had the foresight to go into the market study and look and get the comp plan and put this together and get the comparisons. And the year I came in, it was 2017. we had to, I think it was $2.7 million, Zach, that we invested in the compensation plan and in employees. People move on. I'm talking to two guys on the back row back there, one's looking at his watch, and I'm hurrying, okay? Anyway, they were telling me somebody only been here 5 months, and if this is confidential, you can give me the oath, but anyway, somebody only been here 5 months, everything, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. His old place called up and goes, you know what? And they offered him more money. Only 5 months here. You know, it's like, well, he wasn't really part of you. Yes, he was, because of the training and the uniform and all of that. That was an investment for the citizens of this county in our sheriff's office. And he left. And that was something that, like the clerk said, 3 dispatchers left in 1 week. Do you know how long it takes to train a dispatcher? And I live in the city of Nampa, and I haven't been in there yet, but I've got a few things to say to their meeting too. So, I mean, they call us the training ground, and they're pilfering our employees. And so those commissioners, before any 3 of us got to have a seat here, they invested time and they had the foresight to get this plan rolling and moving. And it's a good thing, and I am 100% confident that the compensation plan works. Does it need to be updated? Oh, good golly. Have we ever in our lives experienced anything like life has been the last, year and a half? Oh my gosh. Yes, it has to. I mean, when you can go to Taco Bell and make nachos Bel Grande for $15 an hour, yes, we have to update this comp plan because we've got to stay up. We're not ever going to be the most, well, not while I'm alive. I don't foresee that happening, but maybe while Commissioner Smith is alive, we'll see that comp plan, and we will be, maybe, wouldn't it be cool to be the competition before, you know? It makes me really proud that we train them and all these other places want them, but that also makes me really mad. So. Anyway, we're right now, I'm really hurrying, I'm trying. I'm sorry, but I only get to do this once a year, and this is your first one.
Yep.
So you'll know not what to do. But I agree with the clerk. Oh, look at here.
I'm excited. Put the squeak in the voice and put that in the minutes.
Yeah, I will. I'll say it over that time thing over there. I'll take it with me home and do it tonight. But I just want to say that I approve of this budget. Clerk Yamamoto, Zach Wagner, thank you very much. I've had some questions, I've had some ideas, and some of them have been harebrained, but you've listened. And the questions you've answered. When I call, you pick up the phone, and you answer, and you give me good information, and I look it up, it's good stuff, and you're doing a great job, and it's not an easy one to do. And right now especially, there's so many funky things going on with our federal government. And to be honest, Commissioner Alder, I don't know that I trust him all that much either. But we are in good hands. The elected officials, the department heads, several of you are here. Thank you so very, very much for all that you do and because without you, we don't even get to have a job that we love. So thank you to the employees, thank you to the other elected officials. You are some of the coolest, finest people ever in my life. I've had the opportunity, it's a privilege to get to serve beside all of you guys. I'm gonna get emotional again. Why? I'm not leaving. So anyway, I feel the pressure. So I wanted to just thank Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Van Beek. Thank you for being part of a team. And, you know, 3 women commissioners were like one of the only ones in the entire United States. Whoop, whoop. Thank you, I'm sorry.
Madam Chairman,
Commissioner Levy.
as you can tell, it's interesting and entertaining to work with Commissioner White
What about me?
and Commissioner Smith. And I, too, am always challenged by this job. It is a huge job. There's a lot of learning curves, and it takes several years to get into the groove. Part of it is what Commissioner White has indicated, that there's always opportunity to learn. Commissioner Smith, I told you I would look, and I have looked in the tentative budget for 2022, and I will stand corrected that the expenses that have been listed for the American Rescue Plan totaling $6,169,000 and 45 are not in there. Those lines are zero. So that's always great. Thank you. Appreciate that. With that being said, there are some things that I would like as commissioner to have different. Last year, well, I will start with 2019. I was sitting as commissioner-elect watching Steve Rule and Tom Dale and Commissioner White at that time try and work out the budget. Commissioner Rule asked the other 2 commissioners to not take a pay increase, which they agreed to, and then he asked them to reduce their pay, which they did not. So I was appreciative of that as an incoming. But the next year, we took a small increase, and then last year we opted to take no increase, because recognizing, even with as much as I love learning and the process of being this again is a job that challenges me personally, professionally, and spiritually, and they all compete, and I like it. There's a lot to learn. I'm very thankful that with the addition of Commissioner Smith, this board has gained some solidarity and some ability to work together that I think has not been present for a while. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. I really love working with you. I appreciate and really enjoy working with Commissioner White as well. Thank you for your kind words and comments. Thank you, as you've been committed to trying to get everybody to play nicely in the sandbox. We've been interviewing for a new HR director, and they always ask the question, what is it like? Especially for people that have not been in county government. It can be full of conflict. It doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but a respectful civil process is one thing that I value greatly, and I want to model that, and I want to lead with that. I appreciate the opportunity always to be a part of the process. I do have some concerns with where we're going with this administration. That being said, and my history that I just gave on the salary increases for elected officials, not only did the commissioners not take a salary increase, none of the elected officials last year, as a show of unity and solidarity, they held up those salary increases as well. So recognizing with that we don't have a placeholder for non-property tax revenue and property tax revenue, and with I think the commitment of this board to reevaluate so that we fairly and accurately pay our employees, especially given the information that I've provided and researched tonight on the cost of living adjustments that will have to be made because of the current climate that we're living in. I have a greater appreciation for what's been presented as a great story. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. It is 6:50, and I'm probably the only thing standing between us leaving. I do want to note, just for the record, I'm not going to echo all of the sentiments. We've done a lot of appreciation, and so I'll
Non-repetitive.
yes, non-repetitive testimony I think is very important. So leading by example. My only concern with this budget at this time, I think Kenyan County currently, the thing that's frustrating for me is that we are not 100% open. COVID is real. However, it's something that I believe that we're gonna have to learn how to live with. And nearly all of our employees, if not all employees, are back to work. There's one area that stopped operating recently, business per se. Jury trials are being held and not happening in Kenyan County. And the taxpayer has to keep paying for that. And there's 21 new positions that are being tied to 3 new magistrate judges, which those don't do jury trials, but they do. And so then that just helps my cause. I am deeply worried about funding 21 new positions when one judge in the Supreme Court has the authority. We can all shop at Walmart, we can all go to Home Depot, we can all join in this room, but we don't have jury trials. And we're gonna fund that? That's upsetting to me. There was a woman on the corner that, with her daughter, that shared a story about rape with me. And that because of all the plea bargaining that's going on, the defendant pled down and is not serving jail time. And that's sad to me. The detriment of COVID is beyond the people that have gotten sick. And so for me personally, the only change that I would like to make, if we can't hold trials, we should not be funding new positions. Yeah. And so,
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Van Beek?
we asked this question to the clerk and the controller. It was brought up early in the budget process this year on what that would look like. It was Commissioner Dale, Commissioner White, and myself that proposition was brought to entertain having magistrate judges in Kenyan County, and the answer at that time was yes. So in light of what's taken place since that decision was made, I did have lunch with Mike Boyle 3 or 4 weeks ago and asked him about unwinding that deal. And he said it can be done at the legislative level. He said if you don't need that in Kenyan County, he said then we won't hold you to that in Kenyan County. I agree with what you're saying. Kenyan County has taken a position, and we've received a number of emails asking the county to protect freedom and personal choice, which would include the decision whether or not to wear a mask or get a vaccine. I strongly support that position. I will not capitulate to that. I think that's wrong. And if your proposal is that we remove funding for those positions, then I would be in favor of it and second that position.
Clerk Yamamoto, any comments?
I believe you got my answer yesterday.
I didn't.
What is the cost of the 21 positions?
Probably around $1.5 million.
Madam Chair?
So,
Pardon me.
Commissioner Van Beek?
There is a period where commissioners can make adjustments by opening the budget. I would submit that if there was movement forward in holding those jury trials, that could be brought back for approval or consideration by the board.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner White?
if we're not gonna have jury trial, why do we need 3 new judges? So, oh, look.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk since public comment has been closed, Commissioner.
Because you're an elected official providing help for our deliberations.
And I know the chief public defender is present today,
Yes.
as well as Aaron Zolli. I'll let Sam act as official legal counsel, but jury trials are only one small component with regards to court operations. The state of Idaho has funded 2 new magistrate positions, 1 new district court position, is my understanding. Previous board advised the state of.
Are you picking that up on the video? Is that okay on the sound?
Yeah, so the previous board authorized that. I think there was conversations. The current administrative order, and I will, Aaron Zolli can correct me too, as he reads it, and both of our offices are impacted by this. The 98% of court operations are still going to continue. Those 2 magistrates are going to have full dockets, they're going to have full calendars, we're going to have court trials, proceedings, pre-trials, motions to suppress. There's going to be civil dockets that the clerk's office is going to have to manage. The only thing in which the administrative order currently does not authorize is for the public to come in as jurors to have jury trials. So we're still operating at basically 95% of those court dockets that are still going to be operating. And without the positions, we won't be able to staff the courtrooms. So that it's ultimately up to the board on that, but we would advise the TCA and the ADJ that we do not have bodies to go into those courtrooms. So.
Is it true that the jury trials, most of those jury trials are for heinous crimes? No?
I guess, well, as the board is aware, the Idaho Supreme Court had issued an order during the first round of COVID, and jury trials are basically suspended for 13 months. We've been trying to play catch up over the summer. A lot of those trials that have been sitting and pending for almost a year and a half. And I would say that a large majority of those current trials were given more priorities to the more egregious crimes. But that doesn't mean that misdemeanor cases, we were having misdemeanor trials that were going on as well. So it depends on, I guess, on the lawyer is what's your definition of egregious, Madam Chair. So I think all the cases we take serious. I know the public defender's department does the same thing, is they have to represent their clients to the best of their ability. So the court proceedings are still going to go with those 3 new judges. The only thing right now are not trials. So,
Madam Chair.
So I don't know.
So for the benefit of the audience, this curtailing trials and the mask mandate is a very recent occurrence.
Right,
And so we really haven't had time to deal with that yet.
right.
So it, and I would imagine some people sitting here wondering, well, if that was in the budget, why are you talking about taking it out now? So it's a late occurrence. It is a bit of a problem here. So, and last I checked, you hadn't seen your emails, but I emailed the ADJ today and asked him to lift the mask mandate. And I gave him till Friday because I want to give people the option. So I've not heard a response back yet. But as far as the budget, Zach, would you like to lay in on what that would mean?
No, thank you. How about I ask it, I'll make it easier. This isn't this was, I was notified of the issue on Monday. Today is Wednesday. And my point is fairly, I'll just admit, political. We should be open. We should be offering all services to our constituents. I believe that you all deserve that. And so it would be probably without having an opportunity to visit with the ADJ and come up with a solution. And today it would be pretty final cutting that budget instantly. But I'd like to have that conversation if we can't fully get open and be committed to being fully open and providing the service that we're required to have. And if we're safe to go to Walmart and live our lives, we should be safe to assemble in a jury room. And you're already saying that the clerks and other people are coming. I am incredibly proud of our DMV staff and our driver's license staff. Those men and women have had a torturous year, and they showed up for work every single day, and they were exposed to the public every single day, and they showed up. And we can do the same for jury trials.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Levy?
and the last piece of news I saw on the COVID was that now they're recommending a third shot, and that even if you've gotten a shot or had it, that you have to continue to wear a mask. I don't understand that.
Well, we have to get a flu shot every year.
You might have to.
No, I never do. I'm just saying.
But I want to make sure our position is clear that the county, Board of County Commissioners has always encouraged personal choice, hygiene, self-care, management. I think we're smart enough to engage in loans and other things, and we can be smart about those kinds of things that protect our level of health and safety. I have a question. I don't know who would field it. Commissioner White was in that meeting with the TCA, but it was my understanding during that meeting with Doug Tyler, then the TCA at that time, that if Kenyan County would not have opted to add the 3 magistrate judges at this location, that they would have done it at a different location. They wanted to know, the legislative session wanted to know what level of interest there was from the county, and we provided support. But does anyone remember what that would look like at the county? Because it was optional.
And Madam Chair, Commissioners,
Sam.
I think that the county's role in approving those magistrates is really limited. It has to do with whether you would be willing and able to budget for the ancillary services that the new magistrates would require. So while it's very important to have those policy discussions with the judiciary that you're talking about, I think the concern, along with the short amount of time to consider this, would be that the impact of cutting it, I don't know that it would affect the new judges coming over so much as it would affect the people who have court, who have those proceedings, our staff who need to continue to provide the services. I would strongly encourage you to have those policy discussions with the TCA and the judiciary, but I think right now it would be problematic to cut those.
Commissioner White, that was a pretty rude answer I had, but I will answer you now. Had a conversation with the chair, and she broached the subject of cutting those 21 or whatever it was. My comment was, well, that's entirely political, but while you're at it, why don't you just cut all 35 new positions? I'm okay with that. The courts will suffer. It will be a grievous situation. But if you want to make a point, if you want to make a political point, that's a big one. So that was the answer.
What's the answer? So,
Is there any way you can put this off?
I think as a department head, and you're providing comment for us for deliberation.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry,
Aaron Bazzoli, for the
Yeah.
record.
thank you. And I'm not gonna give my home address for obvious reasons. Next door, across the hall. Mr. Taylor's right, that, as you are, that we're not having jury trials right now. From March until mid-August, we were doing jury trials. Everything was open, we were scheduled, we were running them on a limited basis, but they were being conducted. I mean limited is that we weren't doing a full slate of bringing 300 or 400 people from the community in every week to go through these things, or 100 or however many. The order that you're referring to is a temporary order. It's based upon the Supreme Court's order that has authority over the judges. We would love to have jury trials. I would love to have my clients who have been waiting for their day in court for 16 months while some of them are sitting in jail, to have those. The Idaho Supreme Court has said, district judges, the county can say, you know what, we're not gonna fund these positions. You're going to start in October with 2 new magistrates and 1 new district judge and potentially an empty courtroom without prosecutors, without defense attorneys, without clerks, without court reporters, without bailiffs, without staff. I don't know how that's going to look. But the jury trial aspect in a criminal caseload is one small component. Again, I would love if the Supreme Court will have changed that order. They have a formula they use that each administrative district judge looks at the district health numbers every Thursday and tells you what the jury trials are going to be in 2 weeks. Judge Southworth, if the numbers scale down the next couple of weeks, could lift that order and we'd be right back up doing jury trials. Again, that is our hope. I don't know if not funding, and again, I stand to get 4 potential positions out of this, not because we want 4 positions, but if we're going to add new judges into this courthouse, we have to be able to put bodies in front of them. So I appreciate, and I would love if the commissioners would address those issues with the Supreme Court, with the administrative district judge. You have our support of, I'm sure, Mr. Taylor and myself. Our employees, I've said this for a year and a half, and I don't want to be a broken record, but Mr. Taylor's group is in the same boat, as are the clerk's office. We've never shut our doors. We've never not gone to the jail. We've got inmates with COVID, potentially, or at least maybe, that we still meet with and talk to and sit next to. We did a murder sentencing today on a case that happened December 30th, 2020. Courts are still running. The system is still working. There are a number of things that have been delayed, but we had 40 people in a courtroom today, most with masks. So what's going on in the courts is it's not shut down. It's maybe one aspect of it that needs to get back up and going. That's the Supreme Court directing the other judges what to do, and they have the overall authority. And again, I would love if the commissioners address that issue, but I don't know if not funding those positions is going to achieve the results that this board needs. If that's the case, then maybe they don't hire those people until everybody's ready and on board with them.
Right.
Madam Chair.
I agree with you. Just one quick thing, and then I think we're good to move on. But I did ask Judge Southworth if this was an order from the Supreme Court, and he confirmed by email that the Supreme Court placed the responsibility for entering COVID restrictions on the ADJ of each district. He chose that route. And so we'll do as recommended, and I already stated I think a rash decision on this would be rash, and so I think that we have opportunities to manage that moving forward, but still fund positions at this time.
I'll put the icing on this cake, as I often do. I agree with you totally. A point needs to be made. This COVID control will continue forever
If we let it.
until the American people have had enough. It needs to stop. And I agree with you totally. I would really like to make a point right here in this courthouse. But I think at this late date, it would be, let's just say it wouldn't be very nice. Thank you.
All right. I would entertain a motion for this budget and dollar certifications of the budget request forms. Just get the point.
Good discussion.
There was good discussion. I really appreciate it.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner White?
Move, I'm not sure if this is the right order, but I would move good discussion and that we would approve the specific budget for Kenyan County for fiscal year 2022. Let's see, and we need to read that, the exact dollars.
So, as publicly noticed and pursuant to Idaho Code Section 311604 and 311605, fiscal year 2022 budget hearing for Kenyan County was held on August 18, 2021. Having held a public hearing and pursuant to Idaho Code 311605A, the board hereby resolves to adopt a fiscal year 2022 expenditure budget for Kenyan County in the amount of $117,341,644. A fiscal year 2022 expenditure budget for the Kenyan County Pest Control District in the amount of $330,327. And a fiscal year 2022 expenditure budget for the Melba Gopher District in the amount of $12,000. Sufficient revenue is anticipated to meet the appropriations of each office, department, service agency, or institution for fiscal year 2022, barring unforeseen emergencies. Can I have a motion to approve that resolution and the budget as stated?
So moved. Second with discussion.
Please discussion.
Yes, so Madam Chair, I do appreciate some of the issues that have brought clarification to this budget, and I would support it with the provision that the board has the ability to establish a capital improvements plan for the excess revenue that's in the budget currently. 46% is fund balance that is reflected if we take out the closure for $25 million, as the controllers indicated, and then the ability to adjust the compensation plan pursuant to the hiring of a qualified director for that, and then evaluate the cost of living adjustment information based on the Social Security Administration's adjustment that happens. So there's a lot in there. I think, given current dynamics, I could support this budget with those additional requests for the board to evaluate.
I don't know that there's an official way to do that. I know that I'm committed to having those discussions. I think that a capital improvement fund is something that should be discussed and explored. Obviously, I want to see through an updated compensation plan. So,
And that's good enough for me. Your word is.
We do have a capital expense line in the budget. That's where we bought election equipment out of that capital expense. Am I wrong? Is that right?
That's correct.
That's correct. So we do have
And what I would entertain thinking.
and as a matter of fact, excuse me, Commissioner Van Beek, it was at a meeting just like this when we had the discussion, and $500,000 a year was committed to that line, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
I think Commissioner Van Beek's just asking that we continue a discussion with some identified projects moving forward.
And
Having that discussion.
We have that, we do have a line.
Madam Chair, we do have a line, and one of the problems, even I think Commissioner Alder would say that that line is subject to pilfering, that's what I'm going to say, and that for long-term, the board could establish a resolution to dedicate a percentage of either new construction, the retiring revenue allocation monies that will be returning to the county. There has to be a plan in place that succeeds us as commissioners, that drives projects forward in Kenyan County. Ada County has done that with a strategic facilities plan and a corresponding funding plan for that. That's what I'm talking about. And that is very different than what we have. And that line that you're talking about, Commissioner White, was stripped out. I understand that that money was taken for use on the Fair Expo building. So I would submit that a portion of that is from fund balance, which is not an ongoing sustainable source of revenue sourcing to meet obligations. If we're going to ever build a public safety facility, we have to have identified revenue sourcing for that. That's what we've been told multiple times.
Okay, the only thing I have to say about that is that I don't like the word pilfered. That connotes something dishonest or behind the back or secretive or I don't know, whatever. But it's that the money in that has been used for capital expenses. And so, or capital projects. And the election equipment was definitely capital expense, and the Fair Expo building is definitely.
Thank you for that, Commissioner White. I would also make a comment that Commissioner Smith and I were both involved in a discussion with IAC on potential of what a sales tax would look like going forward. And that's another avenue that we would explore to help augment the revenue sourcing for.
That's local option.
Correct.
Yeah, we're gonna rename it. Okay, there is a motion on the floor by Commissioner White and a second by Commissioner Van Beek for adoption of the aforementioned budgets. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and it is 7:16, and we'll close this meeting, and thank everyone for their participation and work on this budget. Thank you.